What is going on, guys? We are back here basically for another one of these top 10 videos. This one is the top 10 Pokemon in OU, well, that are used in OU, but aren't actually OU by tiering. So, first off, I got rid of a lot of the Borderline mons. Two of the Pokemon on my list are from Borderline, but I just banned stuff immediately like Volcanion and Terrakion and Alakazam from entering the list because obviously those are very, very good Pokemon which do actually get their time to shine in OU. But those are just OU based, not OU, they're Borderline because their usage isn't high enough, but the Pokemon I'm talking about have been UU at one point or another, besides two, I believe. So that being said, let's just let's hop right into the list. So the first Pokemon I have at number 10 is Metagross. Now this is not Mega Metagross, obviously. This is the Assault Vest set, regular Metagross. Regular Metagross, that's really its only real set that can be viable, which is the AV set. And that being said, AV isn't too bad. It's really, really good for offensive teams that, like, especially when you pair it with Keldeo, and its big selling point is it is a Pokemon that can switch into stuff like Gardevoir, Alakazam, and Latios, and can easily threaten them out with Pursuit or Meteor Mash, and it makes us a really, really nice trapper for teams like that require that usually hold Latios as their main form of like water resist. So Metagross is really, really nice for that. Really, Metagross doesn't really have too many roles outside of that. It's just a very, very solid Pursuit trapper. And I guess it's just nice for dealing with stuff like Latios, Latias, Guard, Tornadus T, that kind of thing. Its coverage is pretty nice. Stuff like Earthquake, it can use that to take out Jirachi, and it can't be set up on by stuff like Charizard X, that kind of thing. You can even run Zen Headbutt in a sense to hit Rotom, but even then that's not that good just because Rotom is faster than you, and it's just gonna burn you, and then you're pretty much useless at that point. But yeah, Pursuit, Meteor Mash, and Bullet Punch are basically the three big staples. I mean, Metagross AV, it's not a bad set in the meta. I mean, you're not going to see it very much. You're only going to see it on very, very formulaic teams. Like, for example, I have a replay here. Let me just push it up one sec. Okay, so as you see from this is an SPL 7 replay. I think this was week 7, maybe? It doesn't matter. It was a SPL replay between CBB and X-Ray, so two good OU players. And if you're looking at X-Ray's team, it's very, very formulaic. He has the Magnezone here to trap the Steel types to aid in the Altaria sweep. Metagross to bait them in for Magnezone. Metagross also has the plus side of being able to switch into Latios easily, trap that thing, get rid of it, which can only help Keldeo more. And even helps his own Latios. So that's basically the formula here. And if you look at CBB's team, CBB played in the back the entire battle because of how threatening X-Ray's Scarf Keldeo was to his team. Because CBB could only go into his Latios so many times, and as you're going to see, let's just skip through a little bit. Alright, so this happens, blah, 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 blah. CBB has to go into this, take 37. He U-turns out, and it's very, very hard for CBB to ever bring in Latios when that Keldeo comes out, if it ever does come out. That's like the biggest problem with this battle. So as you can see, he brings in Latios there, he doubles on the Keldeo, I think predicting the Jirachi just so he can, or the Lando sack just so he can get off a hit, goes into Latios, and now here, the Metagross can come in like just easily, but CBB has to keep playing aggressively, has to keep switching out that Latios, because if that thing ever gets trapped, what does he do? Manaphy is at what? Hold on, let's see this. It was at like 20-ish? Hello? Why isn't it showing me HP? Whatever. Manaphy is very low. Jirachi's at like 40. Yep. Hoopa hasn't come in yet, but that's not like that thing tanks quite easily. Heracross doesn't resist. It's gonna get hit pretty hard. So like that's basically the main problem in this specific game. Yep. He goes into Keldeo here, goes into Heracross, isn't gleam, but he's always playing in the back in this entire game. X-Ray is in complete control because every time that Keldeo comes in, X-Ray can do nothing. I mean, X-Ray can do anything by just going into Metagross, trapping it, and then sweeping with the Keldeo. It's very, very easy. As you can see, HP Fire does nothing. 33% from a Life Orb HP Fire, just absolutely zero damage. And yeah, X-Ray's able to knock that thing out, and then CBB already says GG because it's basically over here. Well, I guess Metagross kind of swept in the end, but basically what I'm trying to say is if you're looking at the team, CBB's best water resist on this team was the Scarf Latios. Manaphy, while it is bulky, it doesn't pack like the hardest punch, so it's not really threatening these other Pokemon that Latios is meant to take care of, stuff like Rotom and Keldeo. So the fact that Metagross is there to pretty much just make CBB play the 5 versus 6 really helped X-Ray in this battle, and this was probably like a really easy win for him in a sense because he just had to not play stupid, to play patiently, find the time to trap Latios, and it was just a really easy game from there. So that's pretty much my example for Metagross. That being said, it is a good Pokemon for these offensive style teams, ones that really want Latios out the way and are either Fairy weak or Zam weak, that kind of thing. So it definitely does have its place as the 10th best Pokemon on this list. With that, let's move on to number 9. Okay, so at number 9, I actually put Diggersby. Now, Diggersby is a really interesting Pokemon. We don't see it as much anymore, which is actually kind of a shame because I just used it in a live actually, and it's really, really good. It's very, very underrated. One of the biggest things about it right now is that if you were to run Choice Band Diggersby, it's one of the few physical attackers that can just straight up 2-hit KO Landorus T without a without a super effective move or anything. Just with its straight stab return can 2 KO Landorus T. That is of course factoring in Stealth Rock and you know, them having Rocky Helmet over leftovers, but that's pretty huge. Not to mention that it also has access to Quick Attack, which is a very, very strong form of priority that just helps a lot in general. Diggersby, its like coverage is really nice, only really beaten by Gengar. SD is fantastic, even 4 attack is very, very good. Bandit usually runs Fire Punch, Quick Attack, Return, Earthquake, but Life Orb can do the same thing with the same 4 moves. Fire Punch destroys Scarm, actually 2 KO Scarm, which is ridiculous to think about. Fire Punch, pretty like a relatively weak move, but Diggersby is packing at like 430 attack, so it's just able to just, actually it's like 464 if you're adding it, yeah. So yeah, it's basically, you can't really switch Pokemon into it. I mean, its speed's kind of low and its defenses aren't that good, not to mention it's weak to stuff like Azu, which even though Azu is also a huge power, I would definitely think Diggersby is better than it right now, but I guess that's a discussion for a different day. But yeah, like I'm saying, fast Pokemon make it really like hard for Diggersby to flourish in the meta right now. Like Metachamp, for example, is killing it. All the strong stuff will one-hit KO with stuff like Metagross, and that kind of thing. Boosted attacks will just knock it out. But the thing is, the Bandit set doesn't get worn down that easily. You can easily get a couple of kills in if you run it in like some kind of, I guess, Volt Turn sort of style. Just bring as many switches as you can if you have like a Landorus, a Rotom, a Scizor. That's what I had in the PO Live, I mean the PS Live I uploaded with it, and I was able to really get some kills with it. I mean, it gets pretty free switch-ins. If you get the free switch-in on it, there's very little that balance teams can do, unless they're packing Scarm, and if they have something like Clefable, Gliscor, Ferrothorn, even Landorus, even Hippo, like it's hard for them because I just alternate between EQ and return. If I want to catch the Ferrothorn at any point, I just EQ and it's obliterated. People don't go to stuff like Metagross and Heatran on Diggersby because they can't risk it. Other than that though, replay wise, I don't really have too much left to, like, I guess, show for Diggersby. There's definitely, like, I mean, there are probably replays out there, but in tournament play, I've only really seen it used once by Amfuga, and it actually did do some work in that battle, but it didn't, like, really shine. It was just more of a glue that definitely did get kills. But yep, like I'm saying, Diggersby is a really like a really potent wall breaker in the current meta, and I guess it's just not appreciated enough, but it's definitely worth trying out if you can, like, make the proper team for it. I mean, obviously it's not a Pokemon you can just throw in willy-nilly into attacks, but if you make the proper double, or you, like, find a system of, like, Volt Turn to bring it in, it can be a very, very good Pokemon for your team. So that being said, let's move on for number 8. Okay, so we have Toby Kiss. Now, Toby Kiss is a really interesting Pokemon. It really didn't see any usage until Stall hit like its peak, and then people were like, oh wait a minute, Toby Kiss absolutely obliterates Stall, let's just use it. And basically that's like its biggest selling point, the fact that it can just throttle balance teams, and also it should destroy every single Stall. Granted, I guess your luck is good. I mean, Air Slash flinching the Quag, and you just gotta play around Weavile, which isn't even hard because it's not like you can Pursuit Trap Togekiss to resist Dark. But that's basically the big thing with Togekiss. The Nasty Plot, Air Slash, Heal Bell Roost set is phenomenal. I mean, it just invalidates Pokemon like the fat Pokemon like Hippo and Sableye and that kind of thing. They just can't do anything to you because you just Nasty Plot up on them and you just start sweeping the entire team. Even Thunderwave is a option that people like to run, but honestly that's not that good. Because first of all, Togekiss isn't that fat with just max HP and max speed. Like, obviously it's fat, but I mean, I don't know. I don't like running T-Wave. I'd much rather run Heal Bell because if your Togekiss gets burned, paralyzed, or toxic, it is not sweeping. It becomes extremely hard. Togekiss really likes that recovery from leftovers, and being whittled just really hurts in general. But yeah, that being said, this is probably Togekiss's best set, the Nasty Plot max HP, max speed set. It's actually deceptively fast. Like, it hits 284, which is really, really nice speed. It's even faster than Timid Heatran, which is great, and you beat that thing anyway. Well, I guess they can taunt and that kind of thing, but Togekiss in general won't be doing too much versus offense, but like the balance and the balance bulkier builds in OU definitely get punished hard by it. And I guess it's all just the games with Air Slash. Other set wise, I really wouldn't recommend running anything else. Togekiss definitely, I guess, does have some space as a defogger, but it's, I don't know, it's not that guaranteed. Being Stealth Rock weak and being a defogger, even with the bulk that Togekiss has, isn't that good. I mean, like a Specs set or a Scarf set might have some sort of gimmicky merit. I can see Specs working, honestly. Specs doesn't sound that bad just because of its natural bulk. If you can keep rocks off the field, you can spam Air Slash pretty easily, run Aura Sphere for Tran. that kind of thing. Like it has options, but honestly it really shines with the Nasty Plus stall breaking set, which many bulky teams do not have much for it. Like you can run stuff like a Scarf T-Tar, but that thing takes like 12% from Air Slash plus rocks. You can't trap it, so I mean it's getting worn down quite quick. And yeah, basically Toby Kiss in general is very, very hard for these bulkier teams to deal with, which is why I thought it was quite deserving of number 8 on the list. So let's just move on to the next one. Okay, here we have Ryu Necklace. Now, Ryu Necklace is a pretty cool Pokemon in OU. It hasn't been used, I guess, too much lately, but 2 replays I have to show you guys. I'll show them in a little bit of them being used in World Cup as well as Smogon Tour playoffs. One of those rounds in there show that it can be a really, really good Pokemon. Ryu Necklace, I would definitely not use it like on the ladder or something like that. Like I mean, you can use anything on the ladder in a sense. I mean, it's the ladder. I do Hita Fajita. You can use anything. But basically what I'm trying to say with Ryu Necklace is that it's very, very matchup dependent. Like there are a lot of annoyances in OU right now, like Bisharp and Weavile, Scizor, even Heracross to an extent, that really, really annoy Ryu Necklace, give it a hard time in the current meta. Basically Psychics in general just have a hard time, the bulkier ones, because how Weavile is just everywhere right now. But even that being said, Ryu Necklace is actually getting kind of popular because it actually walls Medicham. Medicham can't 2 KO it with anything. Which is really, really nice, just because everyone just wants to run that Pokemon, and it can't break Ryu Necklace no matter how much it tries, which is really, really nice to see. But yeah, basically the Calm Mind, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Recover set pretty much can take on pretty much every single bulky team that lacks a T-Tar, and even then T-Tar Crunch doesn't do that much from a Scarf set. You can recover up on it, then switch out, basically not having to play Pursuit mind games, and if they do Pursuit by any chance, it just turns into setup fodder. So it's really, really nice. In fact, Manectric after +1 can actually end up walling a lot of Pokemon. Stuff like Landorus T, it can set up on stuff like what I'm trying to say, it sets up on stuff like Scarf Landorus T, it sets up on stuff like Lopunny, can set up on Venusaur, Tran, if you, I guess, get a +1 as they switch in, because you just blow it away with Focus Blast. Diancie becomes setup fodder, Mega Manectric. It's really, really nice. Even defensive Pokemon fail to do anything. Ferrothorn, Hippo, Rotom, Venusaur, all these Pokemon just become really, really bad versus Ryu Necklace, and they have to see, okay, what do I go to, what do I go to? Even Sableye isn't safe, because +6 Shadow Ball will blow that thing out of the park, and what is it doing back? Foul Play. They don't really run that anymore, and it doesn't really do anything to begin with. You can only knock off once to get with the heavy hit, because when they have the item, and after that it's doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, Ryu Necklace is really, really nice for this reason right now in this current meta. Let me show you a replay that would probably best show like what kind of teams it would excel versus. Okay, so the first replay I have is a more, what's it called, modern one, I guess. This battle only happened about 3 weeks ago, and it was Gem versus Nidor for Smogon World Cup. So as you can see by Nidor's team, it looks like a pretty solid team. I mean, it has stops to most of the stuff in the meta. Slowbro plus Clefable can wall a good chunk of Pokemon. Stuff like Scizor, which is usually annoying to cores like that, get beaten pretty hard by what's it called, Thundurus and Heatran and that kind of thing. So his team in general does look like a pretty careful team. Like, it has the right power and bulk split, which is nice in this meta. But if you look at it, Jam had a Ryu Necklace, and at preview, Ryu Necklace actually just destroys this guy. It really does. Like, he has very, very little for it. Clef becomes setup fodder. Tran is setup fodder. Slowbro does not beat it. Even if they get +6, Slowbro is still the Shadow Ball does way too much. I think it does like 45-ish on average. So one special defense drop, and it just goes down, and it's a losing battle completely because you get stalled out of slack offs. Tornadus T becomes setup fodder after this thing gets to +1 and that kind of thing. Thundurus can't really break through it without Nasty Plus. So if you played Ryu Necklace well versus a bulkier team like this, it just gets completely obliterated. Gem didn't have to do that because Raikou had an even better matchup in this specific instance, but looking at the battle, you can easily tell that Ryu Necklace has a very, very good shot at just cleaning through this guy's team. Another example, wait, not this one, wrong replay, that's for a different Pokemon, is this one between Cicada and Masterclass for, I think, Smogon Tour back in November, so not too long ago. Basically, as you can see, Masterclass is running kind of a bulkier offensive team, but his biggest threat with this team is basically the, what's it called, the Ryu Necklace. Now, you think it wouldn't be too bad for Masterclass just because he has the Mega Scizor, but Cicada has really nice support for that. He has Heatran, Keldeo, which I think is Rest Talk, and a Scizor. 3 things that deal with Scizor excellently. He managed to get up a T-Wave with his Mega Latias on it so that it's slower than it, so that a boosted Ryu Necklace can just take its chances and power through. And basically all Masterclass really had to hit it offensively from besides that was Latias. So it gets set up on Tornadus T, gets set up on if this is at +1 because I think it's Tauntless, and Scarftar, which, you know, it's not beating it 1v1 at all. and he has a regular Slowbro to add to it, which just does not deal with Ryu Necklace. So Ryu Necklace was an extremely big threat to this team. I think Ryu Necklace actually ended up winning this game, if I'm not wrong. If you see, every single time Cicada went back into that, what's it called? See, he T-waved it there. Every time Cicada went back into Ryu Necklace, it became extremely hard. See, he can easily just recover off that 57% from Crunch, go into his Scarm here, which is able to eat that up quite nicely, continue to lay up spikes and that kind of thing. It's even a nice makeshift check to Slowbro, because he doesn't want to risk his other Pokemon getting burned and that kind of thing. It just became very, very hard for Masterclass to find footing in this battle, because Ryu Necklace could just wall the majority of his team, and Ryu Necklace ended up just sweeping through at the very end of the battle. So, yep, that's basically it. Let's just move on to the next Pokemon. Okay, so at number 5, I have Mega Aerodactyl. Now this thing is like the scourge of UU, but it actually does have its usage in OU. It can do a decent amount of things in it. Its main selling point really is the fact that it's really, really fast, and it can deal with stuff like Alakazam and Latios, especially Torrentee as well. It's probably the best on bulkier sand builds, I think, because you get the Spadef boost, and pretty much the most used set is the Pursuit set, just to trap those things that are usually annoying to Sand. Stuff like Megazam, for example, is really, really frustrating for Sand to deal with. And, you know, Aerodactyl can just come in, Pursuit trap that thing, make it a non-threat. Stuff like Life Orb Torn is completely checked by Tornadus T, it can get rid of that. And even then, it doesn't just stop at Pursuit. Stone Edge, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, Aqua Tail, Aerial Ace, it has so many good options physical for a physical attacker. Ice Fang is really, really nice, especially because you can just get rid of Landorus right there. And then Aqua Tail helps versus stuff like Excadrill and Hippowdon, not to mention Tyranitar, so it is really nice. In fact, I was planning on using, what's it called? Mega Aerodactyl in an SPL week. Actually, versus CTC, I had this team of Mew and Aerodactyl, which was really, really nice. Basically, the team's meant to just weaken the opponent's team until Aerodactyl can come in and just obliterate everything, because it's very, very fast, and it's a fantastic late game cleaner, or just revenge killer in general, because, I mean, it's faster than all these good offensive Pokemon. Lopunny, Keldeo, Diancie, Latios, all these strong Pokemon, and it can come in. It has the necessary bulk to take an attack here and there, but even then, it's not too much of a tank. The biggest problem with it is, like what I said, it's a cleaner. It's not killing that much stuff at full unless it has like a super effective stab attack, and that's basically its biggest problem. But even then, it has the momentum to be really, really nice. And let me just show a replay to pretty much show you what kind of teams it excels. Okay, so here's our first example. This was from last SPL, so about 6 months ago, as you can see by the date. ABR versus PDC. ABR is running like a more bulkier team, while PDC is running offense with a couple of like just pretty basic strats, like the dual water core, probably Bandit Azu to deal with Ferrothorn, so Garrett can sweep. Pretty like basic core wise for offense. But in the back, like, obviously Aerodactyl isn't like super strong versus the majority of its team. It's not like it kills a lot, but it's ABR is very, very weak to stuff like Alakazam. As you can see, his only psychic resist is Starmie and Ferrothorn. Both get covered easily by the coverage, by proper coverage moves. So Aerodactyl was always in the back, ready to take care of Alakazam. So that was a pretty big threat to ABR's team, which he was really he was able to take care of really, really easily. And once Alakazam pretty much got out the game, it became a lot easier for him to just win, because the rest of his team just walled everything. So ABR actually did end up winning this game, and Aerodactyl was probably, I mean, it was obviously a big part of that. I have one more replay to show. Hold on. Okay, so this was my this was last OST. So this replay was actually about a year ago, so it's kind of old. But I think it still has merit, just because it's the only other game I can think about with Aerodactyl. So my opponent here is Rosikli. I had 4 Pokemon left, he had 6, but I just killed off the Garchomp with my Life Orb Starmie here, as you can see. And then once you get rid of Garchomp, his team actually becomes really, really rock weak, and just in general weak to an Aerodactyl. So I switch out of here, I bring on my Arrow, he goes for the knockoff, and he doesn't actually have any good rock switching. So he goes into Scizor, takes about 45, I'm able to go into Keldeo, take the BP. I double back here into my Aerodactyl, predicting the Celebi. Now I'm able to Aerial Ace on his Raikou, knock that thing out. Because I switched out the first time, I'm able to bait him in with that, kill him off with a Fire Fang. And then he goes into Azu, I just switch out to Keldeo. Back into Aerodactyl, I'm able to Aerial Ace this thing to knock it out. I keep this thing in the back just in case for the Tornadus T, and pretty much that's basically it. I mean, I win the game because my Starmie wins, but that's beyond the point. What I'm trying to say is Aerodactyl is really, really nice versus these types of offense that kind of have, like, I guess, in a sense, weaker Pokemon that require, like, they bulky offense that relies on having switch-ins and, you know, switching out, setting up, finding the right time to strike. Those kind of teams, Aerodactyl is kind of nice versus those, and that's basically where it thrives. So, you know, I thought it was pretty worthy of having the 5th best Pokemon position, so let's just move on to the next one. Okay, so at number 5 we actually have Crawdon. Now, it's actually pretty surprising that I haven't seen Crawdon that much lately. It's a really good Pokemon in OU, and I definitely recommend trying it out as a wall breaker. People always say they want to complain about stall and balance and that kind of thing, but what on stall can switch into Crawdon easily? Nothing can switch into this thing. The Life Orb SD Jolly set is in a really good time, like it's having a really good time in the meta right now, because it breaks through all these obvious cores, like stuff like Rotom, Heatran, Landers. What can they do versus Crawdon? The other fact is, Crawdon's faster than Rotom by actually a decent amount with Jolly. It's faster by 20 points, so if Rotom does want to outspeed Crawdon, it has to take 80 away from defense, which actually does add up a lot when you think of a Pokemon like Rotom with such a, low HP stat. It's already a little bit frail, so when people use it as their defensive pivot, it's really nice for Crawdon if they try to invest in speed, because it's not like they can switch in at all anyway. And the better thing about Crawdon is it only really needs its stab moves because of how good Dark is in general. Common switch-ins to stuff like knockoff that people use, like Skarm and Ferrothorn, just to sponge it once, they cannot be sponging hits from Crawdon. I mean, it's insane. Like Crabhammer, for example, 2-hit KOs, max HP Azumarill, just with Life Orb. Jolly, it just 2-hit KOs Azumarill. It's ridiculous to think about. Aqua Jet in the back makes for good mind games because you can revenge kill a ton of stuff. Drill, Lopunny, Torn, that kind of thing, because like water stab in general is just really nice. And not to mention the biggest like nuisance to physical attackers, Slowbro in the back, obliterated by knockoff. Even if it's Mega, it's not walling it. Like, it's really nice. The only big problem with this thing is its frailty. Like, it's extremely frail. Like, it dies to Volt Switch from Rotom and that kind of thing, even though it's like, I mean, it's super effective, but most water types you think of like Keldeo, they don't even take that much from Volt Switch, like just a bit over half. Crawdon just straight up dies. Crawdon dies to pretty much everything. You can't switch it into like Earth Power from Heatran. You're taking like 60, you're getting to a KOs. So that's basically the big problem with it. It's lack of bulk, but even then, it's like it's a powerhouse. You're not switching it into attacks. You're finding the proper opportunities to bring it in. That's why slow Volt Switches and U-turns are probably its best partners. Stuff like Rotom and what's it called, Landorus, just make for really good partners to it. And let me just show you a couple of replays from Smogon tournaments that pretty much show its effectiveness for certain types of teams. Okay, so if you look at this replay between Staticus and Axel 10, this battle was just about 2 weeks ago. And as you can see, Staticus is running a Crawdon team, and it's actually a pretty nice team because it makes use of the Volt Turn core from Rotom, and I don't really remember if Scizor had U-turn. It might, but we'll see through this battle. And if you're looking at Axel 10's team, he doesn't really have too much to switch into Crawdon. Like, turn 1 Staticus is just able to go for the Volt Switch here on this, brings in the Chomp. In comes Clef. He's just looking for the right opportunity to bring in the, what's it called? The Crawdon. So, he brings it in here. Man, my bad, guys. So, as you can see, he doubles in on the Tornadus here, and Axel 10 cannot risk his Torn here. Even then Hurricane, I don't think it OHKOs Crawdon, especially because it's AV. It's not really packing that much power. So Axel 10 is free to go. I mean, Staticus is free here to go for any attack he wants to. Axel 10 clicks his Breloom, and as you can see, this Crabhammer does 84% from Bandit Crawdon. It's just ridiculous damage. And every time Crawdon comes in, it's just doing big damage. Like, let's find the opportunity where it comes in again, because I know it comes in another time here. Sorry, this is a really long battle, but I'm just switching in to find the turn it comes in. It comes in again here. What can Axel 10 do? He goes into Metagross. Look at the damage, 81%. If you find the right opportunities to bring it in, it's going to obliterate the majority of teams. He brings it in here. He actually doubles out, which was a nice play on his part. While it does kill everything, he wanted to find the right time to pain split. So yep, he brings it right back in, right on the Clefable here, because it's like a win-win situation. Gets up another Crabhammer, then he can finally sack it, but that's not without Crawdon doing like insane amounts of work versus Axel 10's team. Axel 10 did have 4 Pokemon that outsped and do massive damage, if not kill Crawdon, but even then Staticus just had to play intelligently, which he did during this battle, found the right opportunities to bring it in, and was able to get roughly almost 4 kills with Crawdon. So that's exactly like how you would want to play Crawdon, and Staticus did a really good job of pretty much showing that in his battle. Another example we have here is Cosine 180 versus White Queen. Crawdon didn't do too much, but it was always a threat in the back versus this stall, as you can see. He leads off with Diancie, he makes the double, instantly knocks off the choice Eviolite. White Queen doesn't actually have a switch into this, so he just goes for Thunder Wave, I guess deciding that would be his counter for the day. Cosine's able to go for a double knockoff, now crippling Quagsire in the back, which makes it a lot easier for stuff like Jirachi to get through it. Crabhammer doing 61%, so this is a losing battle. He misses it there, so he decides to switch out. But yeah, that's basically it. Crawdon did its job. It knocked off Eviolite of Chansey, which was insane, because in general White Queen doesn't have good dark resist besides Toby Kiss, and I mean that thing cannot come in on a Life Orb Cram Hammer because that's such a threat. But yep, basically what I'm trying to say is Crawdaunt is one of the best wall breakers in the game. People should definitely start using this thing a lot more. The SD set is very, very dangerous versus the majority of balance, and just teams that rely on stuff like Clef, Rotom, Heatran, Landorus, no, they're getting it just, those teams will get exposed by Crawdaunt the God. So definitely a Pokemon that people should definitely try working with, and if you ever are having problems with a lot of stall, you should definitely give it a go. So that being said, let's move on to the 4th best Pokemon. Okay, so here we have Suicune. Now, Suicune is a really, really interesting Pokemon in OU because sometimes it will do so much versus your opponent's team, mainly if your opponent's using like a bulkier team, and sometimes it'll do absolutely nothing versus the opponent. I say that because sometimes offensive teams are just too much for Suicune. They have a Specs Keldeo, they got the Medicham in the back, they have the Thunder Punch Metagross, they have the Life Orb Tornadus. They just overpower Suicune so bad to where it finds very, very few opportunities to switch in. Especially for teams that like use Suicune as like a wall to stuff, and like it doesn't work like that. Like once Suicune gets its leftovers knocked off, by say if this is like your main Weavile switch in, it just gets annoyed really, really hard by most attacks. It is grounded, so it's susceptible to spikes and rocks, and I mean, it's just really, really hard, I think, in this meta to get a sweep going with Suicune, but that's not to say versus some teams that it just destroys them. Not to mention, Suicune is also really fast. 85 base speed is really, really nice, so it does outspeed a lot of stuff. You can run stuff like 16 speed on it, and I think that outspeeds Adamant Crawdaunt. 20 speed outspeeds Rotom, so you can get up a Calm Mind before they Volt Switch, and even that Volt Switch does nothing, even if they're faster. It does like 40%. Versus those bulky offense teams, Suicune is a really, really good Pokemon. Let me show you probably the most obvious example of what's it called? Suicune's use. If you guys remember, it's TDK versus Joey for SPL. Let me fish that up real quick. Okay, here we go. So for those of you who don't remember this battle, Joey did upload it, but Joey's running a pretty, I guess you would say, safe, bulky offense team. Manaphy, Torn, Sizzle on Latios work as the offensive Pokemon. Clef in the back with Calm Mind, of course, and then Hippowdon is pretty much the catch-all Pokemon to annoying threats such as Lopunny and that kind of thing. See, as you can see here, TDK has like a Terrak and a Landorus, so Hippowdon's nice for that. But Joey's team is pretty weak, so as you can see, it doesn't take long for what's it called, TDK to just start making moves. I don't know why this Terrak's in the way. I must have pressed, okay, it's gone. Basically what happens is TDK just needs to find the right turn to bring in his Suicune, and Calm Mind Roarcoon is effectively able to just toss out the entire team, get like near +6 and just kill everything, like until its last Monclefable. So yeah, Roarcoon, I would never run Rest Talk in this current gen. I just don't like it that much. Roar is much, much nicer for just fatter stuff in general. It shuffles them out, especially if spikes, then it's really, really cool. But it just shuffles stuff out the way, so you don't have to worry about Calm Mind Wars with Clef, and because Clef would normally be its biggest stop, but you can just get that thing out the way. Stuff like Skarmory, if it's Spadef and you're only at +1, they want to roll you out, nope, you can get them out first. And now what? And of course it has Scald in the back too, so it can just burn through its check. Stuff like Venusaur already loses to it, now try Venusaur getting burned without leftovers. It's just really, really frustrating. So this is like obviously kind of an extreme example. The one I'll show you next is even more extreme. This is BKC versus Masterclass for Smogon Tour round 1 in the playoffs. Now, as you can see, Masterclass's team isn't that strong, but it can get strong. Like, he has SD, what's it called, Gliscor, Volt Turn from Magnezone, Rotom, and Tornadus, and then Diancie to take advantage of that, get off kills, that kind of thing. It's not like, it's like a, not like a strong, like a weak team, but it could be a little more powerful. It's like, it's kind of one of those teams that just focus on wearing down the opponent for certain Pokemon, like Diancie and Torrent, for example, to clean up. Basically what happens is BKC leads Suicune and 6-0s this dude, like just straight up. Like, he has so very little for this because like I said, the team is weak. It doesn't have a strong attacker. It just sweeps right through the entire team. It Calm Minds, sets up on like a water type and just sweeps through the team like very, very easily. Not to mention BKC had good support for it. He had Clef in the back to take status if that was ever needed, even though it's not too much of a deal when it says rest. Skarm in the back with spikes, T-Tar to trap Lotties, that kind of, it's like a nice team, a nice balanced team built around letting Suicune win. So Suicune is definitely like, you kind of take a risk when you use that Pokemon. It's not always going to do stuff, but when it does do stuff, it's very, very nice. It's not really a guaranteed, like, it's not guaranteed for Suicune to do work, but versus like certain opponents, you can prepare and bring this thing. It's kind of one of those counter teamy mons that you bring versus a specific opponent, but when it works, it works. So let's just move on to the next. Okay, so here we have Gastrodon. I put this thing at number 3. Gastrodon is just another one of those Pokemon that is just way back in RU, but is so good in OU. I mean, I guess now its usage is kind of dwindling, but it is really nice at dealing with the ever so popular cores of Keldeo, Metagross, Landorus, Latios, Manectric. All those like nice offensive Pokemon just get checked really, really hard by Gastrodon. And not to mention Gastrodon's even an offensive threat because people run Curse, and Curse is such a threat, like, to teams. You wouldn't think that because Gastrodon is not that strong of a Pokemon. I mean, its attack is only base 80, but the fact that it has Scald and that Curse can just set up on stuff like Keldeo, and even Latios, for an example, gets set up on if you're on the correct spread. It can shrug off attacks from stuff like Alakazam, Diancie, Thundurus if they don't have Grass Knot. It's really, really nice, especially the fact that they can switch into Diancie and Alakazam. That's like invaluable because those are two of the most annoying Pokemon to bring checks to. Like, and having a Pokemon neutral to fairy attacks that can just tank too is really, really nice. It has really good resists in fire, and the fact that it's just immune to water means it's one of the few Pokemon that can switch into Volcanion. Of course, you have to get past HP Grass and that kind of thing, but Gastron is a really, really nice Pokemon. For example, we have the Finch versus the Finch versus Jam replay. As you can see, Gastron isn't really an offensive threat, but it's a very big defensive threat. As Jam said, it has the opportunity to just annoy all of these Pokemon. It'll burn Scizor or Curse alongside it. Landorus T gets walled, has the Fierce Scald, also gets cursed on. At one point, Jam was able to knock off Keldeo's specs, so Gastro was able to wall it completely, get curses on it. Jam had a lot of Spadef on his Gastro, so it was able to take 2 Dracos from Latios. Again, curses on it, tries to Scald Burn. Heatran just can't win, and Torn, all it could really do was taunt and hit him with Life Orb Hurricanes, which even then was barely to a KOing. If not, it could have even been rolls. So that's a really, really big deal. Gastron is a very, very big defensive threat to a lot of these teams, and that's pretty much why it's as high as it is. Not to mention it can deal with Rotom and that kind of thing. Its typing is really, really good. That's like Quag is good. Like, it has Unaware, but its typing is really, really nice versus the majority of these offensive threats. So Gastron is one of the best pretty much defensive staples for a lot of these teams. It's just nice in general to have. And it's really, really good for doing core work if you put it with like a 3-mon Fire, Water, Grass. As you can see, Jam is rocking Tangrowth, Heatran, Gastrodon. So, I mean, I don't really have too much to say about Gastrodon. It's just a nice thing to put on defensive cores. It's a good water resist in general. And it really hurts most of the offensive teams in the current meta. So, yep, that being said, let's just move on to the next poke. Okay, so at number 2, we have the King. Nidoking. So this thing, you know, it only really has that one set where it just runs its beautiful coverage of Earth Power, Sludge Beam, Sludge Wave, Ice Beam, and Flamethrower. Don't even need Fire Blast because you're really only using it to kill Skarm, Pharaoh, and Scizor, which all die anyway. But yeah, I mean, Nidoking is fantastic. People, well, no, never mind. Nidoking is pretty fantastic if it's given the right support. And basically what you want from this thing is a nice Volt Turn core, which is pretty much, I always pretty much say that it's good for pretty much every offensive Pokemon. Stuff like Medicham and Metagross obviously love it, but Nidoking especially, because Volt Turn mons in general are always pretty weak, I guess. When you talk about stuff like Tornadus and Rotom, they're pretty weak Pokemon, but they still fish in like a lot of Pokemon that are just meant to take the hit, so bulkier mons. And pretty much the biggest thing with Nidoking is that it's one of the few Pokemon that can switch right into Clefable. If it's not the Bolt Beam set, they can switch right into Calm Mind, T-Wave, it can switch right into Moonblast Flamethrower version, and it just scares it right out with Sludge Wave because not that much resists it. You can't really go into your Rotom on this thing because Rotom takes like 66 from Sludge Wave, which is actually a lot if you think about it. Earth Power, I mean, you're not really clicking Earth Power that much. It's only for like Jirachi and Tran. And that kind of thing, but Nidoking sits at a pretty nice speed tier of 295, which is pretty nice. It outspeeds stuff like Heracross and that kind of thing, and it can just get off pretty heavy hits if you play it smart. I mean, its bulk is not that good, and I guess its speed could be a little bit better, because I mean, again, it is only 295, but you're really only using this thing for the balance. Like, look at BKC's team, for example. That Clef, Suicune, Venusaur, Heatran, Skarm, am I missing a Pokemon? Yeah, probably. But anyway, that team gets obliterated by Nidoking. His only real play is to try and tank hits with Venusaur and Suicune, or try and Pursuit Trap it with Tar, which obviously isn't guaranteed because Nidoking might just stay in and kill it right there. So it's really, really nice versus those Fire, Watery, Grass cores. It's a really good breaker that I guess people kind of sleep on. I mean, obviously it does suffer a lot of competition from stuff like Life Orb, Tornadus T, and other Pokemon like that are just a little bit low risk compared to Nidoking, but that's not to say that it isn't a good Pokemon, and given the right support, it can really just break through Pokemon, because I mean, it breaks all bulky ground, it takes on grass types, it comes in on Tran and that kind of thing, and offensive teams in general can't really switch into it. Like, I'm thinking just of, like in general, of teams that really like to rely on like Rotom Wash, Heatran, Landorus, Latios, Clefable, all those basic pivots. They can't switch into this thing. It's too powerful. Sludge Wave is way too nice to have on its set, and that's pretty much what makes Nidoking a really big threat. I actually have a really good replay to show of this thing's power. Well, it's not a really good replay, but I guess it does show like a little bit. So just basically, I just want you to look at the team. The game itself isn't that good, but the team CBB has here is really, really good for supporting Nidoking. He has U-turn Scizor, Volt Switch Latios, and then Volt Switch Latios, Volt Switch Rotom, and then U-turn on these two Pokemon. Pretty much always finding opportunities to bring in Nidoking as many times as he wants to. So CBB actually makes a completely garbage play and somehow sacks his Nidoking to paralysis. But that doesn't mean that Nidoking didn't do work. So look, he makes the double on Jirachi. Again, this dude's ass, so he decides to flamethrower Jirachi for no actual reason. Ends up getting body slam parried, but that's beyond the point. Okay, as you can see, if CBB wasn't complete shit, he would have been able to bring it in more times and just pretty much destroy his whole team. Like, he got free switch-ins on Landorus. If he U-turns on Rotom Wash again, it gets another kill. If he, like, it's really, really nice in general to have versus teams that use stuff like the Jirachi, Rotom, Landorus, Korra, as you can see, because they don't really have good switch-ins in general to it. But yep, that's just an example replay. Let's just move on to number 1 right now. Let's go. So as you can see, we have Tangrowth. Now, I actually was one of the biggest Tangrowth haters for a really long time when it was initially getting its like rise to OU thing. I really hated it. I ragged on it a lot because I just didn't like it. I found it really easy to wear down with Will-O-Wisp and that kind of thing. Not to mention its special defense is completely atrocious. But really, I think I hated on it because people weren't using it right. Like, people were switching this thing into Scald, taking 30%, then getting burned, being at half, and then wondering, oh my god, why is Tangrowth so bad? But Tangrowth has started to become an absolute staple on teams that want a defensive core. Like, this and Amoonguss are pretty much the two big grasses. People don't use Venusaur anymore. It's not as good as it once was. But yeah, like, defensive grass types, this and Amoonguss are pretty much the two that people want to use all the time. The Rocky Helmet defensive set is really good because it can take on Metagross, Scarflander's Tia, which is just everywhere. You wear that thing down with a it goes for U-turn, does absolutely nothing to you, nothing that Regenerator won't heal, and you're doing Stealth Rock's damage plus the 17% from Rocky Helmet, which just gets really annoying to the opponent. Lopunny, he can't really dent you too hard. Again, Rocky Helmet makes all of these Pokemon lose health. Stuff like Drill, Gyarados, all that stuff, it just cannot break through Tangrowth because Tangrowth actually has a decent amount of power. Knockoff is there to remove leftovers and just annoy Pokemon in general, and then it also has Sleep Powder, which is huge because you just get rid of like one of their switch-ins to it, which is really nice. They can't even go into stuff like Heatran and Latios and Tornadus until they let another Pokemon go to sleep. So you're basically getting like a 2-for-1. You're gonna get to knock off their switch-in, and then you're gonna get to Sleep Powder something that they just have to sack to it. It's just inevitable. So Tangrowth is really nice in the current meta just because of how it's really shaping. Let me show you an example right now of a replay. This is a good one that actually came to mind. So as you can see, this is between the Ender and Gmic. Now Gmic has a really interesting kind of offensive team. It's pretty basic, I guess. I mean, Klefki lays up the spikes, and he has just pretty much strong stuff in the back. Pretty much the two things you want to look at are Life Orb, Breloom, and Sharpedo. Now, Dark in general is a very hard, type to switch into. Obviously, we all know that with the recent buffs it got. And Breloom, Life Orb Breloom in general doesn't have good switch-ins, barring pretty much Amoonguss. But even then, Tangrowth is able to do a lot this battle, as you're about to see. Okay, so let's just get past this. Okay, so Loom comes in here, right? The Ender goes into Tangrowth. Look how little Tangrowth takes from Superpower, even though that's a crit. Life Orb crit Superpower from 394 attack to 70%. That means without the crit, it's averaging about like 45 to 48%. Not even half, which is just insane to think about. He's able to shrug that off. He can even stay in here knowing fully well that he'll take the next one, but he wants to get that Regenerator back, so he goes into Metacham here. Gmic makes the double into his Sharpedo. I'm not sure what he was predicting. I don't know, maybe Latios, but anyway, Ender's gonna go into his T-Tar, stack that thing to Crunch. He's gonna try to scare it out, but I'm just trying to show more examples of the F. Okay, maybe this, okay, whatever. Okay, I can't trust these replays anymore. But basically what I'm trying to say is Tangrowth was in the back, and it was a really good stopper to 3 of Gmic's physical attackers. Landorus, Breloom, and Sharpedo were just really hard to let any of them do work. If he didn't crit the Tangrowth, Tangrowth would have actually just obliterated him, honestly. Because it would have been at a much higher amount of HP, and it would have been able to easily keep on coming back in, wearing these Pokemon down, and yeah, that's basically it. I mean, we can always go back to Jam's game because, you know, the Messiah was using Tangrowth, as we can see, and that was also a pretty big offensive threat to this to Finch. Finch, his offensive Lando was getting worn down really quick and that kind of thing. Jam was able to switch it into Keldeo once he knocked off the specs and that kind of thing. He was able to put to sleep the Scizor, and then later on, I think, well, actually, he missed the sleep powder on Heatran, and if he hit the sleep powder on Heatran, it would have been over. But he actually found the opportunity to put the Scizor to sleep, which helped too. So, Tangrowth is pretty much its shining point is that it works really well defensively on these bulky offenses that really just need a good switch into the majority of physical attackers, and that's where it shines. Other than that, this is the top 10 list. I mean, if we do honorable mentions, I'd say honorable mentions go to what's called Magneton, which definitely has usages over Magnezone just because it's faster, and it's faster than stuff like Starmie and that kind of thing. But even then, I think Magneton and Magnezone are both pretty bad Pokemon, so I didn't really include Magneton on the list. Other than that, you have Slowking, and Slowking, I really don't ever find the need to run that thing over Slowbro. I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, it beats Keldeo better, but it can't switch into any physical attacks as a tank, and that's pretty dumb. It has a very hard time setting up Calm Minds. Slowbro just does it better in general. Slowbro has a way better defense stat. Calm Mind is a Spadef boosting move, so it's much better to run on Slowbro. I do agree that Slowking does have some usages, sometimes maybe Assault Vest, but honestly I would never really run it over Slowbro. So basically, that is the top 10 list for today, the top 10 Pokemon to use in OU that aren't actually in OU. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this, what you want to see next time for a competitive analysis.